Carnival of Souls was released in 1963, and it's a black and white movie. And it starts out that these three girls are in a car and these three guys are in another car, and the three guys are like, hey, you want a drag race? And the girl who's driving is like, yeah, come on. And then the other two girls in the car is like, we're not really sure about that. And the guys like goad them on. So they start drag racing, and they're like going around curves and stuff, and it's like, this like car chase scene basically. And the girl's car runs off of a bridge and into a river, and like submerges in the water, and the guys are like, oh, we tell the cops, but they're like, we don't know what happened, we just saw them go off the bridge. And so they're dredging the lake, and they can't find the car, and they no sign of the girls or whatever. But this one girl who's the main character, her name's Mary, walks out of the water just like kind of dazed, and they go up to her like, oh, are you okay, what's going on? And they like still can't find the car. But she just kind of goes about her business, and I think she works at a factory that makes organs, like the organ they play in a church. And there's a lot of shots of her like playing the organ, the multiple keyboards, like organs. I don't know if you've ever seen like a massive like church organ, but it's got like pipes up to the roof, and it's an amazing, intricate instrument that must be extremely hard to play, because you have to play it with your feet too. There are a bunch of like pedals that you play as well. But it shows her playing, kind of this like distorted circusy music. And she says that she's going to Utah to be the church organist at this like small town. So she goes there, and she's driving, and she sees this scary guy in the window, the passenger side window. And she looks, and it's just her reflection. And this scary guy keeps coming back. And I swear to God, if you were a kid in the 90s, I kept thinking this guy looks like goth John Lithgow. If you ever watched Third Rock from the Sun, John Lithgow was the main guy in that show. And the scary guy in Carnival of Souls, it just looks like him, just with like a lot of black makeup around his eyes. So I kept thinking, there's John Lithgow again. But it's not him. This is from the 60s. So Mary gets to her little church town, and, she on the way, she sees this like abandoned building out in the distance, and she's like really intrigued by it. And she goes and asks the preacher or whatever, oh, is that place, what's going on with that? He was like, oh, it used to be a bathhouse, and then it was the dance hall, and then it was Carnival, right? And she's like, oh, can you drive me out there? And for some reason he's like, sure. And he goes like it seems like a long drive out there, and there's a fence around it that says keep out. And she's like, I want to go in there. And he's like, no, I'm a priest, it wouldn't be a good idea for me to break the law. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll come back later. So she goes to this like boarding house or whatever to stay there. And there's like this nice lady who runs it. But then there's this like creepy guy who stays in the room next door. And he immediately starts like hitting on her. Like she's got like a towel on from the shower. She realizes it's him, and like chains the door and like puts on a bathrobe and stuff. And he's trying to get her to like go out for drinks with him or something. And she's like, no, and she's having trouble like connecting with people sort of. And this guy doesn't seem very savory anyway. So the next day, she's going to buy a new dress at a department store. And the sales lady is like, oh, we'll fix the hemline, just go try it, or, go to the dressing room. And she's in the dressing room, and suddenly she can't hear anything. And she's like, well, that's weird. And she went out and she tried to talk to people, and they were just ignoring her, like she wasn't there. And she was like kind of running around, like she couldn't hear any noises, like from traffic. She couldn't hear anything. And like nobody was like, it was like she was a ghost. So she ran out to this like little park, and she grabs onto a tree, and suddenly she can hear birds tweeting, and there's like sunshine on her and stuff. And like suddenly everything's kind of back to normal. So she goes to this water fountain and like takes a sip of water, and looks up, and it's the scary John Lithgow again. She like freaks out, and she screams and she tries to run away, but then this guy like grabs her and he's like, hey, you're having a moment of hysteria. Like, men in old movies used to do this to women, and it was so fucked up. I was like, what's going on? And he was like, it's okay, I'm a doctor, come to my office, it's just across the street, you've just had a fright. And she's like, she just screamed a little bit, like she wasn't having a fit on the ground or something. Like, he acted like she lost her fucking mind. And she goes to the doctor's office and she's telling him about like, she's just having like disconnected feelings and stuff. And she told him about how she couldn't hear anything. And he was like, oh, this sounds like a dissociative state. I'm not a psychiatrist, and when he said that, I was like, you're what? You're not a psychiatrist? Why are you treating this person? And, he just gaslights her into thinking like, oh, this is just psychosis. It sounds like you had a scare from the car accident and you're still getting over that. So it's like, okay, yeah, I guess reasonable advice, but it's also like he's kind of dismissing what's happening to her. So she goes back to the boarding house and the creepy guy is like, oh, will you meet me after your organ practice? And she's like, all right, fine. And she goes, she had gone to the creepy abandoned place by herself before that and sort of looked around, and it's all like decrepit, but it has like the signs of like everything it was before, like saltwater bathing and like broken down carnival rides and the dance hall with the decorations all in decay. And like she really felt like it seems like it spoke to her, but then she went to the church organ practice and just started playing, and suddenly she's like not looking at the sheet music, she's just staring off, and she's still playing, and she's seeing like these ghouls dancing around in the dance hall like really fast, like sped up. And she just completely lost in the music, and the priest comes over and stops her, and he's like, you've desecrated the house of God or something. Like she was playing like satanic music, and it's just like organ music. But he's like, you can't be our organist. And she's like, all right, cool. And she gathers up her sheet music and she's walking out, and he's like, but you can always come back to the church is always welcoming. And it's like, dude, too late. So she goes and meets the creepy guy. He takes her out for drinks, and she's not really receptive, and he's kind of being a jerk about it. And then she's like, I don't want to be alone tonight because these like shadow people are following her. And, they go back to her place, but she doesn't like want to kiss him. She just doesn't want him to leave. But he's like, oh, you one of those crazy girls? I can't deal with crazy girls. And he like leaves her room. But then like the shadow people come and, like chase her down to the abandoned place or whatever. And it's really fun, like jump scares, they're chasing her under this dock, and like all these like ghouls keep popping out, and she gets scared and runs away. And they chase her out to like where the dried up lake was or whatever. It's like all wet sand. And then they like kind of devour her. And nobody really knows what happens to her, but then they find the car in the river from the beginning. And the main girl, Mary, is in the car still. Like she was dead the whole time. And it's, The Sixth Sense is a little bit like that, but this was so focused on her and like her experience of being dead and being disconnected from the world. And, depression can feel like that sometimes, but it's such a good, like for any kind of mental illness back then, this is exactly how women were treated, especially. Carnival of Souls, I highly recommend it. It's beautifully shot. Especially watch the black and white version. There are so many good like shadow and light play symbolism. So that was Carnival of Souls from 1963. If you want to see me explain any other movies, a horror movie or otherwise, just comment down below, like and subscribe. Send a tip on Venmo or Cash App if you'd like to. The handles are in my bio, and I will see you next time.